Most reptiles, let's face it, are pretty easy for you to keep, but there are 5 reptiles that are really hard, so don't get those, get these ones instead. To be clear, these animals are difficult. They're hard for you to keep for many different reasons, which we'll go through, but that doesn't mean I'm telling you not to get them. Difficult reptiles just don't mean don't get them reptiles, it just means that they're more difficult than... Okay, let's start. Number 5. Asian water monitors. Over the course of the years, I've had the same sort of opinion on Asian water monitors, but my personal sentiment has really changed. I'm in love with them. If I had room for any animal, if there was any animal I don't have currently because of a space issue, it would be an Asian water monitor that I would go ahead and get. And the simple reason is they're so sweet. They're beautiful. They're these big monitors. I mean, 6, 7 feet. Some people say up to 8 feet. The problem is with an Asian water monitor, well, there's several, is first of all, they're too big. So what are you going to keep them in? A lot of people will keep a full-size Asian water monitor in an 8-foot by 4-foot enclosure. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily objectively wrong. In my opinion, I wouldn't do this because an animal that's going to get 6 feet, that's a lizard, they need more room. Plus, an Asian water monitor is going to swim. They're going to need a pond area or an area at least to soak in, if nothing else. So they're just too big for most people. Now, what you could do, if I sectioned off the entire back of this room, do not bite my ear, you're not a diamond, and made it big and had a pond area in the, like basically the entire bottom, and it had a section for him to get up on. Like think of kind of Slinky's enclosure from Camp Kennan, but outside. That'd be great. And then have an outdoor enclosure. Fine. If you live in Florida or Texas or somewhere you can keep them outside for most of the year, okay. But if you live in Buffalo, New York, I mean, best of freaking luck. Never mind, what if you live in a place that doesn't even have basements? So like, where are you gonna build this thing? Your main floor? You're gonna build it upstairs, maybe in your garage? So instead, I recommend if you really wanted a monitor and you want something that is a monitor that likes water, Merton's monitors aren't the easiest thing in the world, but at least the size factor isn't there. They're going to swim a lot and they're smaller and they look really cool. Mike's Monitors is a fantastic resource if you're looking into them. Something more realistic, if you just want a monitor that is more realistic, is smaller ones. So if you want something like, let's say, I don't know, an Ackie monitor, a Kimberly Rock monitor, although I think Ackies are probably the easiest and best option. Maybe the best option would be, well, Kevin McCurley at Nerd is actually making dwarf versions of actual Asian water monitors, and he's making them in different morphs. I have all the respect in the world for Kevin. I love Nerd. They're fantastic. I don't know how available these dwarf monitors are. I know some of them only get to like 34 inches, so we're talking less than 3 feet, half the size for a true Asian water monitor. But if you want something that you can get generally, most of the time, they're pretty, easy to find, just kind of expensive, and you want it to look like a black dragon, because if I were to get an Asian monitor, it would 100% be one of these melanistic ones. They're called black dragons. They're now actually pretty affordable at, $2,000 or something like that. So if you want a black monitor that's more realistic, maybe a black tree monitor, the Becarii. So I think that these are probably the coolest of the tree monitors besides the blue ones, just because in general, of course, this is anecdotal, they seem to be really chill. I mean, my friend Greg at Beneath the Canopy, he's got, I know these are gonna be vertical videos because he's an Instagram guy, but he's just chilling on his head, being super cool, like no problem at all. That is what I want in a monitor, which is why I bought one. So I have one coming. I have a tree monitor. Just hit subscribe if you want to see it. It's going to be like, I can't wait. Number 4, crocodilians. Now this might seem obvious. There's a very specific one because I think a lot of people always, well, ask me in general, but a lot of people think that getting a dwarf caiman, which is a crocodilian, caimans are types of alligators, is just like, okay, well, I can have an alligator and it's tiny. Like, no. A dwarf caiman is still gonna get 4 feet, which is huge. Maybe not for a crocodilian, but for an animal that has razor blades in its mouth and is generally cantankerous and doesn't want to be held. I mean, a dwarf caiman isn't a puppy dog. This isn't something that's easy. This isn't a tegu even. This is an animal that is a serious responsibility. So if it's legal in your area and you have room to do it, then by all means, if you have the training and you understand the risk. But for 99% of people, don't go get a caiman or really any crocodilian. If you're looking for resources, I've got a friend, KJ2Cozy on everything. My friend KJ, he knows how to do it. He's on TikTok and Instagram, and he's got basically a facility where he's got everything caged in like big, huge ponds, and that's how you do it. And also he's a crazy person and understands the risks. But for everybody else, There's a few here that I'm going to recommend. If you want something that's big and still difficult, maybe get something like a Cayman lizard. A Cayman lizard is an animal that they call them water tegus. So they're semi-arboreal, they're semi-aquatic. They have the scalation that looks similar to, crocodilians, and they like the water. So that's your best bet. But again, that will reappear on the list because it's also difficult. If you have all the money in the world, then get yourself a Borneo earless monitor. These things look very, very much like crocodilians. Of course, this is very serious. I say this seriously. Get one that is ethically brought into this country or captive bred. Do not get a poached one. They are very endangered. I do not recommend that at all. I'm actually condemning doing that. Don't buy one off the black market. Now, obviously, this is the best case scenario. For most of us who don't have $3,000 for an animal, the better option, but much smaller and doesn't act at all like a crocodilian, but looks like one, would be a crocodile skink. Red-L croc skinks, you can get them for, $300, $400, $500, $600 if they're captive bred. Again, buy a captive one. I promise you, if you buy ones that are imports, they're gonna be cheaper, but they'll die off more frequently. And they hide a lot, and they're really not that exciting to keep as a pet, honestly. Well, depending. If you wanna handle it and see it out in its enclosure, not for you. But if you want an animal that is so fun to photograph and interesting and just in general an interesting animal, but just won't be around all the time and isn't something you wanna be watching a movie with, it's a great option for you and more realistic. And with all these animals being so hard, generally you're gonna need a mentor or some coaching in order to learn how to take care of them properly if you're going to get one. And if you feel like you need a mentor or a coach in other areas of your life, I want you to check out today's sponsor, Strawberry.me. Personally, I can tell you everything that I've been successful at in my entire life or really enjoy doing at the next level over a beginner level is because I had a mentor or some sort of coaching to help me along and ask questions to bounce things off of and get a good direction of where I'm going. But if you haven't met that person who's gonna guide you, Strawberry.me offers coaching for your career. If you wanna maximize your potential and not waste tons of time and energy not knowing what to do, that's where Strawberry.me comes in. Super easy. You hit the link below, you take a short survey about you and your business, and then you get matched up to a qualified coach on the website. And all the coaches in the Strawberry.me network are experienced professionals trained in evidence-based coaching practices. Every one of them undergoes a careful vetting process to assess their coaching education, their training, expertise, and experience. So scan the QR code or go to the link below, strawberry.me/WWR, and start your coaching journey with a $50 credit. Number 3, hardest pet reptile. Cayman lizards. Okay, so I know that I just said get one instead. Cayman lizards are better than real caimans, but they're still bad for most people. And I'm actually gonna make this semi-aquatic, semi-arboreal big lizard. So Cayman lizards, even basilisks, I would say. There's 3 species, but all of them. Even Chinese water dragons, Australian water dragons, I mean, these are to a lesser degree, and sailfin dragons. So a lot of the cool stuff that needs area up top and a swimming location, these are bad for most people because they're really difficult. They're hard to keep properly. You could do it in an economical fashion if you did it in a grow tent. A lot of people do this because it gives you height and a lot of space. An 8 foot by 4 foot by 6 foot tall grow tent is like $200 or $300. I have one, but I literally grow plants in it. That's what I use it for. Do you want to see a plant collection tour one day? I mean, it's kind of philodendrons and anthuriums and hoyas, and anyway, let me know, comment section. Now I get the allure, they're all really, really cool, and it's easier to keep a Chinese water dragon than it is like a sailfin. I think sailfins are some of the coolest animals in the world, and I had an opportunity to get one of basically any species that I want very recently. The reason that I didn't do that is because I know what a huge commitment in space that is, and it's also a lot of effort because you're keeping water clean, which is a whole other thing, filtration and everything else. You need a lot of space up top and a big footprint. So it takes up a lot of real estate to have one. So this is something usually for people who don't have big collections in their house. They either have a facility with a big collection or they have a smaller collection with more area dedicated to each animal in their house. Now don't get me wrong, they're fantastic, but if you want something more realistic that you can keep in a footprint that is like 18 inches by 3 feet, then get yourself a mountain horn dragon. Now I talk about them all the time. I get it, I know it's annoying, But at the same time, it truly is one of the better animals if you want something that is semi-arboreal and semi-aquatic. If you want a bigger one, get a capra, like these ones here that my friend Daffy's Reptiles has. If you want some that are actually smaller, like much smaller, then get a lepidogaster, like the ones that I have. They eat bugs, they're gonna be in the water and on land. Well, basically not on land, but like up in the area. My enclosure doesn't even have land except for a tiny little garden area, just because I like plants, but they literally never go on it except for when crickets are on it to eat it. So it's an animal that's gonna spend all of its time on branches or perches or in the water. Just keep the water moving, because mountain horned dragons can't see still water. They actually have to have a bubbler or a stream or a current or something like that. I'm gonna make a whole video about this enclosure. I love them, they're awesome. I'll keep this one short because I know I talk about them maybe too much. Number 2, Sulcata tortoises. Well, it depends. If you live in Arizona, you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? These things are easy. I just put them outside my yard. But most of us don't live in Arizona or West Texas. Most of us live in a place where you can't keep them outside. Now, if you don't know, Sulcata tortoises are the 3rd biggest tortoise in the world. They're huge. They're often called African spur-thighed tortoises. They're one of the more aggressive tortoises, like to each other, not to you. I mean, they're from Africa. Everything in Africa is like trying to kill. It's not Australia, but like, you know, Africa is like a pretty hard place to live. A lot of predators and, you know, drought and things like that. These animals like it dry. Their diet's really easy, actually. And if you have a big area outside in an arid environment, something that's warm enough, you're fine. I mean, this doesn't apply to you. Skip to the next animal. But if you live like most of us, where you'd have to keep it inside, I mean, there's literally photos on the internet, like this one here, of them breaking through drywall. So where are you gonna keep it for most of the year when it's too cold? My option is to get a different type of tortoise. I like tortoises. I think Sulcata would be cool to have. Just doesn't fit me. But what you could do if you want like a bigger one that's still kind of big, leopard tortoises are great. But for me, because I live in a more humid environment, I think sherry heads, redfoots, yellowfoots, they're all the same thing, basically. Those are, for me, the freaking coolest, because I live in a place where I can keep mine outside for 5 months a year. I've already had mine outside for a few nights. Tonight's a little bit too cool, so they're inside again for a few days. But generally from about the May 2-4 weekend. If you don't know, in Canada, we have Victoria Day, which is like Memorial Day for us, basically. Anyway, the second last weekend in May, I put them out, and I usually don't take them in until the last week of September. And I live in the perfect area because Niagara Falls is like pretty close, so it's very humid here. It gets very, very hot. So it's perfect. But if you live in an area that's a little bit drier and you still want an animal that is smaller, there's a lot of great options. Herman's tortoises, there's some Mediterranean options. Even get a box turtle if you want something that eats bugs instead. There's so many great resources. Garden State Tortoise would be one. But either way, if you want a tortoise, you can get one. They come in, you know, choose your own adventure of like how you want to keep them. But a Sulcata is on the list because it's the hardest to keep of all of them. Well, besides Galapagos, but everything in the list we're trying to make reasonable. I promise you're not finding a Galapagos tortoise at a rescue. Number 1, mainland reticulated python. Now, anything that's a giant constrictor could work here. Like I'm literally wearing a Megaconda shirt, so anacondas could fit. But the reason that I'm picking retics is because you have a much better option. A mainland retic, I mean, look at this thing that I'm trying to wrangle. The reason it's so hard isn't just because you need a huge enclosure to do it right. I mean, we're talking a 20-foot, even if it's an 18-foot animal, an 18-foot reticulated python, or 20 or 22 feet if you get a really big one, they're a semi-arboreal species, even when they're older. I was lucky enough to find reticulated pythons in the wild, and guess what? They weren't on the ground. So you're gonna need to give them very sturdy options for climbing. They also really like water a lot of the time. Now, I'm not saying it's as necessary as something like an anaconda to give them like a big swimming pool, but generally they'll use water more than things like African rock pythons as a different example. Plus, they have serious teeth. Now, keep in mind, they're not gonna bite you unless you mess up. It's generally gonna be your fault. It's not gonna feel good if they bite you in comparison to, say, something like a ball python, or the better option, a super dwarf reticulated python. Super dwarf reticulated pythons, there's a few localities, so it depends on which island you get it from, what size it's going to be. Some of them can still be pretty big, 10 or 12 feet. Some of them, if you go to Garrett at Reach Out Reptiles, I would call him the authority on super dwarf retics. Some of his males are 6 feet full grown. 6 feet for a reticulated python. Full grown. I've handled animals at his place that are smaller than freaking ball pythons in terms of weight and girth, okay? So you can have a reticulated python, everything you love about them because they're so smart and they have that amazing face and the coloration because there's a bunch of different morphs and their amazing food drive in a smaller package. So a super dwarf reticulated python is by far a much better option. And if you're looking for one, I mean, Garrett at Retail Reptiles, great YouTube channel, a friend of mine. I just got 30 house snakes from him. If you want to watch the videos right up here, that was a super fun video. I also have a saw and look like a crazy person. Anyway, in the comment section below, let me know what the hardest reptile is that you've ever kept and a better option. Thanks again for strawberry.me for sponsoring today's episode. Thanks for watching, hitting like and subscribe. Patreon special shout out, videos early for you guys, discounts on merch. You know about the crazy projects that I'm doing. I bit off way more than I can chew. There's so freaking many of them. Anyway, all that for as little as $1 a month. Because I do videos Mondays and Thursdays, that means I'll see you in the next one.